Well, hey Kitcho, welcome to a new podcast episode of ASML.
Well, thank you for having me back again.
Yeah, it's been a while, right?
Yeah, it's been a while. How have you
Yeah,
been and where have you been?
I've been good. I've been busy with life basically, so I haven't been able to record a lot on the ASML podcast, and I hope this can be a new beginning together with you.
Well, I'm really looking forward to it.
All right, let's get started, right?
Yes.
All right. So today there are a couple of things that I want to talk about with you. It's been a while since we've recorded, so a lot is happening on the subject of ASML, right?
Yes.
I guess you've read the news and you've seen a lot of things passing by. So what we're gonna do today is pick out a couple of things that I want to dive deeper into with you.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is Operation Beethoven. Like, have you heard about it?
No. What is Operation Beethoven and why?
Yeah, that's something we're gonna dive into.
Uh-huh.
And the second thing is basically the news about the stock price, the all-time high that they reached, and why did they actually get to an all-time high in the stock price. So those two things I really want to discuss with you.
Okay, I'm looking forward to the discussion.
All right. So you asked what is Operation Beethoven, right?
Yes, what is Operation Beethoven and also why was it necessary?
Yes. So like that's a very important question because I don't think a lot of people outside the Netherlands know about Operation Beethoven. So basically, Operation Beethoven was a supposed to be secretly operation of the Dutch government to keep ASML in the Netherlands. And obviously, they already are in the Netherlands, right? We've talked about the ecosystem of ASML here in the Brainport area.
Mm-hmm.
However, they were not really threatening, but they were considering to expand outside the Netherlands, outside of the headquarters of Veldhoven.
They would have another head office somewhere.
Yeah, basically anywhere in Europe or even the US.
Why were they considering this?
Well, a lot of different factors. But basically, they need to expand in order to fulfill the future demand that is coming.
Mm-hmm.
Because ASML was always making 10-year projections, right?
Yeah.
And especially with the current AI boom that is happening today, they already see a lot of increased demand for the near future.
Mm.
And their production facilities and their entire operation need to expand in order to even be able to fulfill that future demand.
Yeah.
So lately, since the new government was elected in November last year,
Yes.
there was elected a quite right-wing populist anti-immigration government.
Mm-hmm.
But they were not only anti-immigration, they are also anti-big corporations. So they were planning to have an extra dividend tax on the companies that pay out dividend like ASML does,
Yeah.
right? They were strongly anti-immigration, while the workforce of ASML for 40% consists out of internationals.
That's true.
So all of those things together, and they wanted to curb also the advantages that expats get, right, when they come into the Netherlands in order
Like
to attract international talent.
like the 30% ruling that experts get.
Yeah, exactly. The 30% ruling and a lot of other things.
Mm-hmm.
Next to that, what you see happening in the Netherlands is basically the country is becoming maybe overused. So we have a congestion on the electricity grid.
Mm-hmm.
We have a housing crisis. We have not enough public transport. So like there were a lot of factors that were not accommodating potential expansion of ASML in the Netherlands. Mm. So it wasn't just one thing. It was like a number of factors that they actually thought like, okay, maybe we should expand somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Think about the US where they're giving like huge subsidies to chip companies in order to attract exactly like investors, but also Germany where Intel is building a completely new factory based on the subsidies of the German government. Yeah. So when looking to other expansion possibilities, the Netherlands was also competing with other European countries. So not only the US, but also France or Germany. So then local government, basically the municipality of Eindhoven, they came up with a secret operation to keep ASML in the Netherlands, and then mainly the expansion plan. So what they did, they set up a cooperation between the municipal government, the provincial government, and the national government. And that was very special because at the time Operation Beethoven was being executed, the national cabinet on the national level was already outgoing. Like Mark Rutte as a prime minister already quit, and the government was just sitting there until the new government would be installed.
This is basically late 2023.
Yes, it's late 2023 exactly and early 2024. So there was all the time this, from ASML perspective, this threat of the new government being installed and possibly implementing a lot of anti-immigration policies and everything. So there was like a high time pressure for the current government to implement measures that would help ASML stay in the Netherlands.
Is the Dutch government currently executing Operation Beethoven?
Well, basically Operation Beethoven is finalized now.
Yeah.
And what they did is they went into conversation with ASML together with all the governments on the local level that I just mentioned. And basically ASML just had a wish list. Like, this is what we want. And that's quite bold to ask from a national government, right?
But if you as important as ASML.
Exactly, like that's the situation that we're in now. Like they have the power to ask that. And the government is also realizing they're not doing just the Netherlands a favor, and I will come back to that later. They're also doing the West a favor.
Yeah.
So what they got 1.7 billion euros in subsidies, and this is not just for ASML itself. It's basically subsidies to fund all the facilities needed in order for ASML to thrive and to basically expand. So you can think about public transport better. You think about extra housing with faster decision making. You can think about extension of the electricity grid in a faster pace that we're doing now. You can also think about softer treatment on curbing immigration, right? Like it's essential that you can keep attracting internationals because otherwise the operation just stops. If you can't get the internationals in the Netherlands, then ASML is done over here. So they were able to basically negotiate all of those things as a deal.
And what is the Netherlands getting in return from this Operation Beethoven that is now reached its final point?
Yeah, so maybe 2 months ago, they said like Operation Beethoven was finalized. And then 1 month after, ASML announced that their big expansion is going to take place on the Brainport campus in Eindhoven. So basically the same place as where they are right now. And they have announced a 20,000 job expansion of their company in Eindhoven. And to put that in perspective, currently they have 23,000 people working at the main office in Veldhoven. So basically that's doubling the entire workforce of ASML in Eindhoven. So that's huge.
Yeah, and that's also going to bring a lot of capital into the Eindhoven area. And I think all of those people are going to need a place to actually be housed and live.
Yes, like the impact is even further or bigger than I can explain right now. So it's 20,000 jobs just for ASML, but it also means that the expansion of ASML is going to create maybe 4 or 5 jobs extra for each extra ASML job, because ASML has all those suppliers, right, in the ecosystem. So all those suppliers also need to grow together with ASML. So those suppliers also going to need extra people in order to fulfill the extra demand that is going to come from the expansion of ASML. There's going to be 20,000 more people who bring their families. So there's like 20,000 families who's going to consume more. So think about everything, coffee houses, everything that a consumer needs, right?
Yeah.
So that's the good thing. It's going to bring like this huge economic boom That's already happening in Eindhoven right now, and it's only going to get bigger and more.
And why is ASML's expansion in the Netherlands so important?
Well, that's a very interesting question, because you can really discuss to what extent ASML was threatening to actually leave the Netherlands.
Yeah.
I don't think we will ever know how seriously they were going to consider to actually expand somewhere else. Because as I mentioned in earlier episodes, right, the ecosystem that ASML created in this Brainport area, that is basically what makes them unique.
Mm.
They have 5,000 committed partners, as they call it, and it is exactly that ecosystem that allowed them to achieve the degree of innovation that made the most complex machine ever, the newest EUV machine.
Mm.
And it is exactly that ecosystem that is the competitive edge that we have as the West versus China. And what China is doing right now is trying to copy that same ecosystem. Because the ecosystem has been built up in 40 years. It hasn't been gone like this, you know. It's been gradually building up and being optimized and everything. So if you're going to expand with 20,000 jobs and you're going to do it somewhere else, no doubt that's going to be less optimal than expanding in the heart of the ecosystem where you already are.
Yeah.
So I think they never really considered leaving the Netherlands. However, you're never gonna know, right?
Yeah, you're never gonna know. And yeah, from my little knowledge about really starting a company and making it big, like you said, 40 years is nothing that you can just throw away. And you don't know how reliable or where those other new partners could be sourcing their materials and everything that is needed. So the current ecosystem is quite golden. It's like your golden little egg that you have to protect as much as possible.
Yeah, exactly. And if we want to realize this, maybe we should look at, for example, the electric vehicles, because that's a system where China has won actually.
Mm.
You know, they've been starting to build it 20 years ago, and now they are winning in the electric vehicle market, right? They are flushing us with electric vehicles, and now as a European Union, we have to impose import tariffs because all of our companies are just being washed away by the Chinese competition.
Yeah.
So China is actually able to set up these kind of ecosystems maybe in a faster way because they don't have to deal with democracy.
Yeah.
It's the state facilitating that versus the democracy that we have over here.
Yeah, everybody has an opinion in Europe.
Exactly.
From the local municipalities to the European Union and all the levels in between, the national and the trade unions, everybody has an opinion.
Exactly. So in that way, Operation Beethoven is really like a great achievement because it managed, so far at least, to take all those opinions into account and still be able to facilitate ASML in the expansion that they actually need. Because if you look at it at the bigger picture, it's not just the Netherlands, it's not just Europe, it's the West competing as a system versus the state-led system of China.
Mm.
So that's us with ASML basically at the core, because it's the one company that the entire world needs. There's no other sector where there is just one company fulfilling such a central role. And no doubt China is trying to copy that. So in that way, facilitating ASML in their expansion is basically also, how would you say it? It's basically an essential milestone in keeping up the West versus China.
Yeah, and I like that you just mentioned that ASML plays a central role. And I know that you've recently got a lot of subscribers on your podcast. I would like you to actually just go back a minute and expand a little further. What central role does ASML actually play in the world? I know we've covered this on other podcasts, but I think this is very important for the new subscribers and people who will be coming in the future. What central role does ASML play in the world?
Well, that's a good question. I do think that most of our listeners are already familiar with the central role that ASML plays, but yeah, for the new listeners, ASML is the only company who can make machines that produce the chips that we need for our everyday life. And they have created a system of innovation needed to make that machine basically.
Well, you've mentioned a lot of good things about the expansion of ASML in the Netherlands. Are there any downsides?
Yes, I do think there are downsides. Well, we are living in the Brainport area, right? We are living in Nune, which is at the core of the Brainport area, and what you're seeing is that the public services have difficulties keeping up with the growth of ASML in this case, or the economic growth, so to say, because like it's not ASML, it's also all the suppliers that are growing. So what you see happening now, especially here in this area, but also in the Netherlands, but mainly over here in the Eindhoven area, is a lack of everything. So it's not just a lack of housing, which we are seeing in the rest of the world, a lack of affordable housing mainly.
Mm-hmm.
It's also, for example, a lack of dentists. It's a lack of doctors. It's a lack of, of everything basically. And it's still going now, but it's difficult. Like, for example, I wanted to make an appointment with my dentist, and next year, February, was the first possibility.
Just to keep things in perspective, on which day did you want to? Was it in May or was it now early in June?
Early June.
And your next possibility was only 2025?
2025 February.
Yo.
So what you're also seeing, like, that's also immigration. So you see neighborhoods changing with expats of ASML coming in. And that also creates tension. And it's a different tension than what we have known from the past. Because, for example, back in the days, if an immigrant would arrive in the Netherlands, let's say in the 60s, 70s, he did jobs that the Dutch person didn't want to do anymore, right?
Yeah.
But for most people in the Netherlands, the immigrant was no competition for his job or whatever.
Yeah.
Because the Dutch person had a better paid job and nothing was wrong. What you see happening now is that maybe it's not an expat coming for your job because it's an engineer expat and we don't have enough engineers over here.
Yeah.
But that same expat is competing for the house that you want.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the same, and they're competing with the middle to higher class income.
That they're also competing for the, I'm just talking from an experience that I've also had. They're also competing for the same food because the grocery stores have not expanded as quick, but also the farmers have not been able to expand as quick in order to feed the larger population that's in the area. Just recently, it was said that there will be a shortage of something as simple as spinach. But I'm sure without the increased population, the farmers would have been maybe able to handle that demand, the increase in demand.
Yeah, so that's really something that you see happening right now. And I personally do think that you also see that reflected in the way Dutch people vote. So the anti-immigration party became the largest party last November in 2023. And that means that not only low income people are voting for these anti-immigration policies, it by definition means that if you have so many votes, there is a chunk of the middle class voting for a very strong anti-immigration policy. And we are calling people from ASML expats, but in the end, there's just still highly paid immigrants. Yeah. An expat is just as much as an immigrant as a low paid immigrant is. We just make a fancy word for it.
Yeah, that's true.
So people don't understand that if you if we have a housing crisis, like politics is saying, then why so many people from abroad are coming in? So you really see that the system has difficulties keeping up with the economic growth that is happening right now, and I think that's the biggest challenge for the coming years.
Was there any other news lately about ASML?
Yeah, definitely. So after they announced their huge expansion in the Eindhoven area, everyone was really happy, and the chip market was already coming out of a dip, right? So the stocks were rising already. But then to top it off, cherry on the cake, the biggest chip producer in the world, TSMC from Taiwan, they announced that they're gonna buy the newest EUV ASML machines. And if your biggest customer basically is buying or making a new order, that's something that investors love, right?
Yeah,
so at that day, I think the ASML stock went up by 8%, and it was already going in a steep way up.
Yeah.
So that was, and in that way, they reached their all-time high.
Wow.
And I don't think it's the end, obviously.
No, it's gonna keep growing.
Yeah, it's gonna keep growing. Obviously, the stocks of chips are also fueled by the AI boom. So
Indeed.
everyone is looking at Nvidia, right? And that's like a crazy story. But in order to be able to produce those chips that can actually help the AI boom, you also need the machines to produce those chips, right?
Yeah.
So ASML is in that way early in the supply chain,
but
they're going to profit to a large degree of that AI boom in the same way Nvidia is doing right now, and that's basically what you're seeing.
Yeah, and we are just at the beginning of the AI boom. It is just beginning, and it's just gonna keep growing.
Yes, like obviously I don't have a glass ball to look into the future, but I do think we're at the beginning of the applications of AI in real life. And personally, I think ASML is going to be the shell of the 21st century. So the chips are becoming the oil of what was oil in the 20th century, right? It's what makes the world go round.
Yeah, indeed.
And once we are switched to from fossil energies to clean energy, then it's the chips making the world go round.
Yeah.
They're already doing right now.
Is there anything else that you would like to mention?
Yes, we have the ambition to keep this podcast more regularly, right?
Yes, indeed.
So that's an ambition that I want to speak at right now, and let's try to keep it up.
Indeed, and I think there's also another exciting expansion that you will be making for the podcast.
Yes, obviously this is our first video podcast. Thank you for making up this really nice studio, and let's see how this video will land at our viewers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
We've had a challenge with regards to the sun coming in and out, but I think we will fix those challenges in the future.
Definitely. See you at the next one.